Well, we are discussing family law tonight, specifically adoptions. We have Wendy Draper here with us from Anniston. So glad that you're here, Wendy. We have folks holding on the line, so let's get right to it. Let's start with Ruth from Wilsonville. Ruth, if you will, go right ahead with your question.
I have a question. Me and my husband has had our granddaughter ever since the day she was born, and my daughter is willingly to sign her rights over to us, but her father has not been in the picture since day one, and he is in jail. So how will we go about doing that?
It's a great call. Wendy, your advice for Ruth.
Great question. So since you are related to the child, as long as the child has lived in your home for at least 1 year, then you can file a petition for adoption. Sounds like your daughter will consent to the adoption. Now, as far as the father, I don't know if the mother and the father are married. If they are married, then the who you believe is the child's father would be the legal father. So you could go to the jail and ask for his consent. If he would not sign a consent, then we can serve him with papers with your adoption petition. And then he would have 30 days to respond to the adoption, to consent to it or object to it, and then we could go forward with the adoption.
So let me ask you this, Wendy. If the father's name is not on the birth certificate, does that matter in this case?
It could matter in this case because we would then need to run a publication to any and all unknown fathers. So, and I usually get an affidavit from the biological mother, if she's available, letting us know who the father is, who she believes the father is. But because there's not that marital relationship, then there's not a legal father. But if he's on the birth certificate, even if they're not married, then he would have signed an affidavit of paternity in order to be on the birth certificate.
Excellent.
You know, Wendy, that question from Ruth makes me think of something. That's parental rights and the termination of parental rights and how important that is to the process. When you have somebody that doesn't want to give up their parental rights willingly, talk to us a little bit about what the court looks at and what the putative adoptive parents have to show in order to terminate those parental rights.
Oh yeah, that's a question I get a whole lot. Is somebody will call and say, I really want to adopt my grandchild or my stepchild, but the biological father or mother is not in the picture. What do we need to do? Well, Alabama had, of course, in the adoption process, parental rights will be terminated automatically once an adoption is granted. But if you do not have consent, whether it be implied consent or actual written consent of a parent, then we can proceed to juvenile court and terminate parental rights. But before I get to that step, I usually look at, has that parent impliedly consented to the adoption by virtue of abandoning the child? Our laws favor permanency for children. So if there's a parent that has gone 6 months or more without acting as a parent, without providing their love and affection and parenting the child, then they have impliedly consented to the adoption. So we'll look at that. And then when we turn to look for parental rights, if there's not an implied consent, because we don't have that 6-month period of abandonment, then the courts will look at, is that parent in prison? Is that parent fit? Is that, you know, what are the circumstances of the biological parent?
Yeah. And I think all of these conversations show why an attorney is so imperative for this process.
Absolutely.